Hey, y'all, welcome to One Movie Guy's Opinion. This is your host, Chuck Ginner, and I'd like to welcome everyone back to our movie podcast. Today's going to be a great, absolute, amazing episode because we're going to be chatting about one of my favorites. These are just going to be our opinions, and we love movies, and well, who doesn't love chatting about them? So, with that, here we go. Today we're going to be discussing the movie Monster Squad. It was released in 1987. It starred Andre Gower, Stephen Mott, Tom Noonan, and Duncan Regar. It was directed by Fred Decker and it was also written by Decker and along with Shane Black, who is famous for writing Lethal Weapon, the new Predator movie, and also directing Iron Man 3. It had a budget of 12 million, but it only grossed a little over 3.5 million. But with the VHS, it became kind of cult status. It kind of had the same atmosphere as the movie Goonies, which is an absolute phenomenal movie. It's available to watch on Showtime with Prime channels. And with that, we're going to get right into the movie. The movie starts off, and we kind of get some rolling credits, kind of explaining what's going on with Van Helsing and the villagers and everything, and they're going to be attacking and going after Dracula. And it's really funny because at the very end of the credits, it says they blew it. So a nice little subtle, like they don't even wait. They just go ahead and tell you, hey, boom, we're done. And then we get the title card, which is Monster Squad. And then there's a storm. The music is hitting really good, and then we see the castle. And then we see kind of some caskets that are kind of in the base, in the bottom, in the basement of it. And then we see a really big bat, and then all of a sudden he drops down and reveals himself to be Dracula. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, I was absolutely blown away with Dracula in this. He's not your kind of your typical Dracula from movies past. He had more of a classic feel to him. But Duncan Regar, he did phenomenal. He's actually voted as one of the scariest uh, characters, and it was for this role as Dracula. So I thought that was absolutely really, really cool. And then here comes Van Helsing, and he's got the villagers. Um, and Van Helsing immediately kills one of the female vampires that was kind of preventing, kind of killed her with ease. And then we see an amulet that's throwing some glow and sparkle. And then they bring in a very young girl to read from a scripture. And then as she starts to reading, the ground starts shaking and skeletons are coming up and the other villagers are getting scared and they're kind of wanting to run away. And then all of a sudden she gets done reading and then the amulet opens up and opens up a big like black hole, which I thought was really, really cool. But unfortunately, some of the people kind of get sucked into it, and then it just fades to black. And then we get to present day. Um, and in present day, we're at a middle school, and you kind of hear the principal talking to two young characters, Sean and Patrick, best friends, and they're talking about these drawings that the principal has found, and it's because of the Monster Squad. It's the Monster Club, and they the principal's trying to act like he's cooler than anyone else with the kids, and he says science is real, monsters is not. Kind of a subtle, like you know. There's no such thing as monsters. Well, what little does he know? He's going to be corrected. And then we get Horace, which is immediately called Fat Kid, and he's being bullied by two kids on the playground. And they're wanting him to eat this candy bar. And They kind of step on it and everything, but you know, and he's like, "My name is Horace, not Fat Kid." And then all of a sudden, we meet with the bicycles, the shades, the leather jacket, lighting it on the back of his sneaker with the lighter, smoking a cigarette, looking too cool. We meet Rudy. And Rudy immediately stands up for Horace, which makes Rudy my favorite character in this whole movie because he's superb. He's awesome. Um, Even so much that he makes the bully actually eat the candy bar. And so, yeah, it's you don't be messing with any Rudy's friends because Rudy's going to get you, brother. Um, and then we hear Sean and Patrick, and they're talking about the Wolfman and the different things that the Wolfman can and can't do. And one of them says that the Wolfman can't drive, and they kind of just doing what middle schoolers do during this time. They're just kind of walking with their little sister Phoebe, and then they kind of come up to Scary House, which is actually the scary German guy's house. And like any kids at this age, you make up so many different mindful things of what's actually going on that they've made him into a monster. Well, in the next scene that we get, Horace, runs up. He wants Rudy to join the Monster Club because, hey, you can have the brains, you can have the technology and everything, but you still need a badass. And Rudy is the badass in it. Um, and then next scene we get, they're two pilots. They're flying in an airplane and escorting some wooden crates. One of the pilots hears a noise. And like in any horror movie, what do you do when you hear a noise in a horror movie? You got to go check it out. So one of the pilots gets up and he's kind of checking it out and, trying to seeing what's going on. And then we get a great scene where Dracula shows up behind him and kind of knocks him to the ground. And then the pilot pulls the lever. Well, when he pulls the lever, Frankenstein's casket falls, but Dracula just kind of stays there hovering, which I thought was really, really cool. Ignored it was the effects in the mid '80s, but it was a cool effect. And then he changed into a bat, and then he flies away like he would do. And then Frankenstein's casket actually falls into the swamp, and then we see Dracula as a bat kind of hanging in from one of the branches. So they've made their way into this town. And then we get a quiz. They're going to have to initiate Rudy into their club by having him do a monsters quiz. So the first thing is 2 ways to kill a vampire. One way is with a wooden stake. That's obvious. And the next one, daylight or sunlight, which Horace actually gets corrected, which daylight is sunlight. And I love the chemistry between these kids. It actually makes you feel like they're really, really good friends. And then they ask, was Frankenstein the name of the creator or the monster? And so far, Rudy's getting them all right. 2 ways to kill a vampire was the last one. No, I'm sorry. 2 ways to kill a werewolf was the last one. Silver bullet. And, well, they kind of stumped because nobody goes, nope, there's another way. And they're like, okay, how? And what will pay later homage to this, he says, a bomb. And later in the movie, we realize that that's not actually accurate. But then we meet Mom, and she has a book for Sean, and it's a book of Van Helsing that she picked up at a yard sale. But unfortunately, it's all in German, so he can't really read it. And then the next scene is we get Dracula, and he's overlooking the town and talking about how our time is coming and how it's their time. And it's a great scene, kind of on a hilltop, kind of on a mountain. So and then we meet Dad the cop. Him and his wife are they're going to go to marriage counseling, but he gets a phone call where some guy at the police station is claiming to be a werewolf. Probably not something that happens every day, and hey, if I was a cop, I'd be a little skittish and freaked out. But at the police station, the guy wants to be locked up because he knows that once he turns into a werewolf, he doesn't know what he's going to do. He has no control then over anything that's done. And then they're trying to wrestle him to the ground. They're trying to get him taken care of. And then he kind of sees the moon out of one of the windows, and he gets this big burst of energy. And then he pulls one of the guns, and he just shoots up in the air, and he's like, "Lock me up!" And well, one of the deputies comes in, shoots and unloads, and kills him, supposedly. And then we get Sean's dad with his partner there at the museum, and a mummy is missing. So far, we're getting the classic monsters here. We're getting Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, the Mummy, and they're trying to figure out who stole this mummy, because mummies just don't get up and walk away. And then in the very next scene, the mummy's actually kind of scampering away. And then we get the transport and the ambulance. The guy that was shot at the police station, you kind of starting to see everything move because the moon is full, and then he transforms, and he ain't dead. He is full Wolfman. And then we see Sean, who is watching a movie from his rooftop, because he was wanting to go to a movie earlier, but he had to watch his little sister Phoebe. So, you do what you do. Hey, I've done that, going to the drive-in, watching it from the road and stuff. So hey, I get it. And then the transport is recovered, but the guy that was shot is nowhere to be found, and the ambulance driver has actually been killed. So far they've got 2 bodies completely missing. So it's really just, we don't know what's going on at this point. And then we're at the swamp where the Wolfman is kind of walking around and looking, and then he comes upon Dracula. But because Dracula's scepter, he kind of stays at bay. I guess that's kind of his, like easy boy. And then we get the mummy, and then all of a sudden we see the creature, which is in the movie called Gilman, in order to keep away from a lawsuit. But it's obviously a nod to the creature from the Black Lagoon. And then we also see Dracula, and we see Frankenstein finally. They open up one of the crates, and Frankenstein's in it, and they bring him back with the lightning that Dracula actually uses with his scepter. And then in the next scene, we see Sean's parents arguing. She's wanting him to try a little bit more at home and not have, the whole typical 80s movie where the cops, his life is his job, and his family comes a distant second and stuff. So that 80s trope, I guess, is an appropriate word. And then for Sean, he sees something on the board where his mom took a message on a dry erase board. And it says, for Sean, Mr. Alcard is interested in the Van Helsing diary, possibly some money. So Sean sits down and actually starts to decipher it, and Alcard actually spells out Dracula. So, dun dun dun. So Dracula is wanting Van Helsing's diary. And then in an absolute great scene, and probably another one of my favorite characters, is Eugene. Eugene goes and wakes his dad up, like we all have at one point in our lives, and he says that there's a monster in my closet. So the dad gets up, busts through the busts through his bedroom door, and he's like, hey, is there any monsters in here and stuff? And he does his dad thing, and then Eugene says, monster in my closet. And I love this scene because the dad grabs the closet door, opens it, but pulls away from it to where you actually see the mummy. And Eugene just immediately closes throws his hands over his eyes, and his dad's like, "Ooh, who's this? Ooh!" But there's actually a monster there. So he shuts the door. He tells Eugene, "Look, if you come and tell me again, then I'm not going to let you read those monster magazines that you be reading." So the mummy actually kind of scampers through and gets out through the window, and probably needs to go grab him a beer because he's been mummified for quite a while. And then Sean is having a meeting, and he says, "We're not a monster club anymore. We're a monster squad." And he tells them that there are real monsters out there, and that everybody in that town is in danger. And that the werewolf, the mummy, phone calls that his dad has got, that there's something going on in the town, so they need to be ready, that they may be the only people that are able to stop it. And he's like, hands in, and everybody throws their hands in, and even a cute little moment, Eugene's little dog, which is a little beagle hound, throws his paw up there on top, because he's all in too. And yeah, if you're going to go fight monsters, you need a beagle hound. Then next scene, we're at the castle or at a house rather, with Dracula, and he's talking to Frankenstein, and he's telling them that he's getting ready to have to go to sleep soon because the sun's coming up, and that he needs to find Van Helsing's diary, and that he knows that some children have it, and he needs to do whatever he can do to get it, and if that means killing those children, kill the children. And then we see that the guys are actually at the German scary guy's house, and he's going to translate a book. And we realize pretty quick that scary German guy really isn't a scary guy. He's somebody that's just an older gentleman that happens to be German and kind of lives in what the kids have created in their mind, a spooky house. And then, in an absolute great homage to the original Frankenstein, Phoebe actually meets Frankenstein in a classic scene. I love this scene. This was what Boris Karloff really originally wanted for the original Frankenstein, when Frankenstein's monster met the little girl by the pond and stuff. Love this scene. Absolutely love it. But then we get back to the German guy's house, and he is continually deciphering the Van Helsing's diary, and he's talking about an amulet, and that every 100 years that it becomes possible, in order for whoever possesses this, between good and evil, that they need to be able to close out this portal in order to keep the evil at bay. So there's a big fight coming. And he's like, in a great scene, I didn't get it when I was a kid, but I obviously get it now. So anybody out there watching that's, that will watch this now will get it. An absolute great scene. Horace actually looks at the German guy, and he says, "Wow, mister, you sure do know a lot about monsters." And the German guy is like, yes, I do. And as he closes the door, you see that his arm is numbered, like in the Germany prison camps and stuff. So he's dealt with his fair share of monsters, and that's a great scene because it brings it more real. But I just wish I would have got that then. But me being really young, I wouldn't have got it. But hey, I got it this time for sure. So the squad now, they're thinking of a plan. They're thinking of a plan in order to take out and protect the town and take out these monsters. And then Phoebe shows up, and Phoebe's got a new friend. It's Frankenstein. And then the squad, they all run and hide. And so Sean is the first one of the group to actually walk up and actually meet Frankenstein. And he kind of is like, man, this is cool. And he kind of smacks Frankenstein on his arm, and Frankenstein, kind of smacks him back, but knocks him down. Because, Frank, he doesn't realize his own strength. And it's just a great scene because Phoebe's like, can I be in the club now? Well, Frankenstein, Phoebe has got you in the clubs, darling. Now, they're all in the clubhouse. And Phoebe has taught him words. And one of them is the word focus. And I love it because this comes into play later in the movie. But this is like the big word that he's learned. And then it's kind of a sad scene because, Frankenstein's monster, ultimately everything, it was a tragedy, but he sees this costume mask of himself and, for Halloween, and he's looking at it, and then he touches his face and he's like, me scary. And the kids are like, they didn't realize that, but it's a great scene. Tom Noonan did a phenomenal job as Frankenstein. He really did. And then we see Dracula and Wolfman. They're looking for the amulet, and they actually find it. It's actually underneath where their house is, where they're staying. And then the Dracula is talking that the creatures of the night are going to awaken and come alive and basically going to rule the world. And then the next, we get a music montage, and they're making weapons. Rudy's making weapons. Phoebe and Frank are dressing up. Eugene is writing a letter to the army with the crayons and stuff. Patrick is getting signs and stuff. And then Frank, Frankenstein's got the shades on and stuff, and they're just all cool. So, typical in an 80s movie. It was the music montage. Once that finishes up, Dracula has doped up the human form of the Wolfman. And he says, hey, I'm going to go, snack. Who's, needless to say, he ain't picking up any Ritz crackers. He's got 3 women that he's going to go snack and suck their blood and transform them to, female vampire people to protect him. So, well, with the Wolfman, though, it didn't work because he didn't take the medicine. He actually kind of bamboozled, I guess is an appropriate word, Dracula. And as Dracula's off getting his snack, he escapes. And he calls the police station and talks to Sean's dad, and he's telling him that he needs to get out there to where they're at. It's going to be real bad. And then as he transforms, he even tells Sean's dad, he's going to kill your son. And it was a cool transformation scene, and it was done through Stan Winston. And it's actually the Wolfman's face is actually modeled after Stan Winston. So it's really cool. But, Sean's dad's like, well, I don't know, something's a little creepy here, something's not right, but hey. And then the squad and Frank arrive at Dracula's house. And then the other part of the squad, they are going to ask Patrick's sister if she's a virgin, because they need a virgin to read from the scroll to do the amulet. And it's a great back and forth. Like, you see them at Dracula's house, and then you see the other groups with Patrick's sister. At Dracula's house, the kids go in. Dracula is getting the amulet with dynamite. It actually goes off, and Frank gets actually buried whenever they first go in. And I love this scene too because, I think Horace calls him a monster, and Sean's like, "You don't call him that. He's one of us." So right there, it's a great scene. And then we get the Wolfman jumps down, and Sean's like, kick him in the nards. And he's like, Wolfman doesn't have nards. And then he does, and he goes, oh, Wolfman's got nards. So played great for humor, and it actually worked really, really good. And then we see the female vampires that Dracula has transformed. And then we see Dracula. And then we see the Wolfman. So their backs are against the wall, and they're looking to the right. They see the female vampires. To the left, they see Dracula. In front of them, they see the Wolfman. So they're trying to turn all these levers, because in the creepy houses, you got a secret passage door. And fortunately, they were right. And they hit a lever, and then they actually dropped down through a trapdoor. Back at the thing, they have got Patrick's sister, who has claimed she is a virgin. And they're kind of waiting at like a dairy freeze. But Patrick and them are getting worried because, Sean and them were supposed to report in. And Patrick's sister is like, well, suppose the monster got him. And then Rudy's like, suppose the monster got him. So it's a great little back and forth between that. The squad finally, they find the amulet. And Dracula actually attacks them and grabs Sean. But because Horace had a sandwich with garlic onto Dracula's face, and they kind of was able to get away. And then the German guy shows up where they are and rescues them. And then Rudy and Patrick's sister actually show up at the same time. So they all jump in German guy's car. They're going to head to town. Sean's dad actually is